start, as I said, by taking a look at the bronze final, which obviously is a bit of a dead rubber. It's always a bit of a well, to be honest, like it's a bit of a dead rubber in terms of build-up, but it often ends up being the more open, more exciting, certainly more pacey game, because finals, we all know, can get very tetchy and very nervy, and the stakes are very high, whereas the stakes are, admitted by both teams' admission, not as high, and it's just a chance for them to get a run out and say a few farewells. It'll be good to see probably the last game in black and red for a lot of these players, but certainly for both the coaches. So that'll be happening on Friday, 1st of November, 9 a.m. Irish time, and it'll be taking place in Tokyo Stadium, Tokyo, and reffed by Wayne Barnes, who is unlucky. England's triumph is Barnes's dismay, because we had him touted for a final, and I'm sure he was earmarked as one candidate, but obviously can't be reffing England because England made it all the way to the final.
No,
so he is here in the bronze final reffing the All Blacks in Wales. And it's an interesting game. We have Grand Slam champs Wales versus the mighty All Blacks, so that's already colour enough. We kind of have in the Welsh team a bit of defensive nous versus the offensive flair that is the All Blacks. And we also, as I was saying, the last games for both Hansen and Warren Gatland, both saying farewell in this game. Which is
I had poo-pooed it when it was initially flagged in the context of Ireland. Was this idea that the Joe Schmidt announcing he was leaving had some sort of impact. And yet after this weekend, I was sort of looking at the England and the Springbok teams and contrasting them to the Wales and New Zealand teams. And while even the last World Cup, you did have a lot of turnaround. There was McCall's last heading and Carter's last heading, Nono, Conrad Smith, all of these great players. But at the same time, Hansen wasn't going anywhere. It did have plenty of young talent. It was a side that was very much at the peak of its development. And even not even quite being on the peak, but you're almost better off being on the rise or at the peak of your development than you are being sort of a settled team going into the sort of going into the end of the last hurrah. The last hurrah doesn't seem to work out in World Cups.
It's sort of something to that. There's product life cycle stuff of where it kind of goes off and then explodes, then plateaus.
If you contrast them to where England and the Box are, there aren't many goodbyes from the final this week. Eddie Jones is sticking around, Rassie's obviously sticking around. The whole squad, the bulk of the team. The Springboks did have a goodbye vid the other day. It was the final training session for Scott Brits.
Yes,
they were giving him hugs, he's not going to be playing there anyway. But for the most part, that squad is still young and hungry. And likewise with England, save the likes of Joe Marler, etc. One or two guys. But for the most part, young, hungry squads, and then you contrast them with Wales, and even though Wales do have a lot of young players, not too many guys rolling over.
It was like Warren Gatland and Alan Wynne Jones going on a last hurrah, trying to bring it home. Getting there. Exactly.
That's just one little bit of colour, is that they are sort of the aged teams. The All Blacks, we obviously watch live, and they're 19-7 hammering as brutal a 19-7 defeat that there could ever be. I mean, they just didn't get a thing off.
It's true.
And I actually think there was a lot touted about the English physicality, which is real.
Yes,
but it was smarts. It was a tactical game.
They out-taught them.
The All Blacks are just it was a really modern, sophisticated team with a very clever plan in terms of
a high skill level themselves as well.
Just in terms of pinning the All Blacks back and dictating virtually everything about where the game was played against a team that just does sort of like to play off instinct and throw the ball around, and England didn't allow them to do any of it, and it's going to be a bit of a head scratcher for them for the years to come. I mean, in terms of World Cup defeats, there's a touch of unprecedented about it. Even in 07 they had their Wayne Barnes complaint. In 03 that narrow irritating loss to Australia, 99 against France again. Every time they were sort of had an aggrievement or a reason why it was always very tight, and they always had their excuse, but they've never quite been beaten in a World Cup like that before. And I wonder if it's just going to give them a moment's pause in terms of what they're doing.
They have a moment's pause. This game is from both sides. They have rotated the squads. We do have the squads for it a little bit. It is a bit of a kickabout, to be honest. For the most part, the game it is a dead rubber for a reason. But they will both want to be winning it. But you're right in saying the All Blacks will have to be scratching their heads after that one, because I don't know if they have ever experienced of being totally dominated like that, just handled from minute one. And like, I think we were right in saying we did say a lot of this in our live stream from last week. We were kind of talking through this game in great depth, or that game in great depth was just they didn't seem up to the emotional pitch from minute one, whereas England were so bullish. And then the restart happened, and the game just took shape from like the first few sets, where it was England devastating restart, forced them to exit, slightly sloppy on the exit, and just seizing control and not allowing them to get anything off. And the sort of part of the downside of their approach of just being skills based and like giving a little bit of shape, but kind of empowering your players to try and go and find the space and chase it, is when a team has been coached to the level and are as big and physical and fast as England are getting up in your face and closing that door. It's hard for them to adjust on the fly and go back to certain shapes or patterns to try and unpick that. It's a little tougher.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're a hyper drilled team that have different kind of different sets for different scenarios, maybe you have a bit more flexibility.
Yeah, it was a typical example of what was going on at the restarts when the All Blacks were kicking off, which they had to do a lot more of than receiving kicks.
For sure.
Those little short, chippy ones from Barrett that they were routinely getting a hand to, and every time English players were just getting into that passing lane and gobbling up the ball every time.
Yeah,
and they never made the adjustment to kick deep. Yeah, so there was a touch of all of that to the All Blacks and how they went, and conversely Wales went about the game
as well as they could have, I feel.
Yeah, well, certainly like we expected them to. I mean, definitely. I was sort of supporting the Box. I know you were sort of supporting Wales. But midway through that second half, I was kind of nervously going, "Oh, this does look an awful lot like the picture of a Wales win."
Yeah,
you know, they were gaining a bit of parity. Nobody was quite taking control of that kicking game. So instead of the side who won the kicking game dictating what actually happened in the game, it was actually sort of a stalemate because neither side was really taking control of that area.
Exactly, yeah.
And then there was just one or two wily Welsh plays here or there at lineouts, milking penalties, soft penalties off Garces and getting up the pitch and getting to that drawn game, getting down the pitch after the Lindy try.
That was remarkable, to be fair to them.
And getting the score off set piece, Faf de Klerk making the error off the scrum, shooting in on the number 8 for no reason.
Yeah.
And they took it really well. Josh Adams bagging number 6.
This is it. He's sitting pretty at the top now of try scoring stakes. With this game to come, where there probably will be tries going.
But considering their injuries and considering just how physically outmatched they are by what the Box are bringing in the forwards, it was a very creditable performance.
It was a really good showing.
It was just not when enough. The Springbok bench came on, those elite sort of bomb squad boys that the Box bring on, it was just too much. And Wales had that offensive set when it was 16-all to get up the pitch and score that ended in the Francois Lowe steal. But I mean that was. You know, it must have been 10, 13 maybe phases of just going backwards and backwards and backwards and not being able to get a thing off against the Bok defence that was still hungry because they've only gone and brought on 6 monster forwards off the bench. And just super hungry and winning all those contacts.
It was small margins, and they were very like the Welsh depletion through injury. Like they lost George North during that game, but they really could have used Liam Williams for that game more than probably any other in the tournament, and it was the one he wasn't available for. He was in great form. He's imperious in the air. He would have like Halfpenny, the fine player, but he's nowhere near the authority in the air that Wales have when Liam Williams is there, and him with bigger bombs and catches. Those two could have been the ones to seize control of that kicking game and maybe change the shape a little bit, but he wasn't there and it wasn't to be. And the Springboks showed great clutch themselves to dig themselves out of what was probably a stickier game than they had anticipated. And
I think they knew they were in for a challenge. They were just there for the ride as far as the kicking game was concerned. But they neither side took control of that, so they did manage to eke it out, and their forward pack was the difference.
Yeah.
But that was the story of Wales's tournament exit.
Yes.
Ahead of this game. In terms of the game itself, it is just a kickabout, as we say. Like it's really not the biggest deal in the world. But I mean, Wales, they'll certainly be looking to show more. We tout them as a versatile team.
Yeah.
They'll certainly look to be showing a bit more attacking flair.
They probably will. Both teams.
I know they've gone for Watkin and Jay Davis in the centre this time.
Hatchell at 10 is indicative of trying to run the ball a bit more.
Halamamas at fullback.
Another exciting young talent.
It's definitely running the ball. Owen Lane, everyone's raving about there.
Even with Tipperick and Moriarty and now
James
Davis, not Jonathan. And James Davis in the back row is a bit of another pacey back row that'll be fiendish. It's an exciting team. Their props are all mobile as well in it too. They'll be trying to move the ball around. They'll be trying their darndest to try and grab as many scores as they can. They may be up against a wounded animal in the All Blacks who will be desperate to try and salvage some pride, and the bronze, like losing back to back, is never something the All Blacks are want to do.
Losing 2 in a World Cup is something they've never done.
Indeed. It would be you'd be remiss to predict that happening now. I think.
No, I mean, listen, they've got to, in terms of when they have the ball, they've just got to move it. They've got to roll with it. The All Black D has some holes in it. It's about breaking it up. It's about getting the ball into Jay Davis's hands in that 13 channel. He is their biggest attacking weapon. Having Patchell run the offense, it's going to be a fun game.
Watkin and him, that's exciting. To be fair, they're all good attacking
players. They can all offload. They can
all
make reads off each other. It is sort of dependent on whether they can get that go forward from the collisions. I think Thomas Williams instead of Gareth Davis is a bit of a risk. The form Gareth Davis is in.
True.
Although if there's one thing we know for sure about this game is that Gareth Davis is going to score a try off the bench.
It's an inevitability,
regardless of the context.
It could be their only score in a hammering. It could be the winning score. We don't know, but it will be a score.
Yes, and All Black fans just got to get ready for that. You just got to accept that. That's just 7 points Wales have on the board.
Especially against the All Blacks, they do leave tries to score.
Gareth Davis is going to score a try. We all know that from the bench. But outside of that, with the ball, in terms of holes in the All Black D, it's sort of disjointed. It's Sonny Bill and Crotty. It's Ben Smith. It's Rico Ioane. It's all new. I fancy them to
just give it a go.
As they did against Fiji, just play with that little bit of nous, kick when they need to kick. Attack when they need to attack. Watkin is actually got defter hands than he gets given credit for. And him and Jay Davis in the centre is exciting. And if they can link up and pick runs off each other, that's where they're going to be looking in the holes. And obviously, Crotty and Sonny Bill are going to be doing their best to shut that down.
Yes.
From a defensive point of view for Wales, it does get even that bit more bleak.
It does, but like they know their systems. They're actually, for such a versatile team, they tend to defend quite rigidly in one format, and it involves a lot of harrying at breakdown, generally 1 or 2 players in the defensive breakdown to try and slow the ball up, as well as fanning out across the pitch. I think they're the only team in World Rugby that do that so consistently. They both challenge and fan out.
Well, they both challenge and blitz. I don't know how well they fan out.
They kind of they find it like it's as we've said, because they're competing. The space is outside the 13 channel, and it takes a team brave enough to go there to exploit them. They didn't have that against the box, which is where the stalemate came from. The box weren't really courageous enough to take them on there more often. The All Blacks will be, particularly a rotated All Black squad with a few players with a point to prove. And
I mean, look, on paper that All Black attack is so good. It's a crazy one to try and shut down. I think in terms of battles, yes, the outside shoulder Jay Davis against Ryan Crotty and whoever's in that channel, whether it's Dane Coles, whoever finds themselves in that channel from an All Black point of view, that's where they're going to be attacking. But inside of that, when Sonny Bill has the pill, Watkins got to handle that as well.
Indeed, and that's a big challenge for Watkin, who's like a very very solid defender, but he's very rarely playing against an opposition of the caliber and the varied threats that Sonny Bill brings. So that's a challenge.
Exactly.
For sure.
I dare say shape-wise, there are ways that they can pick their way around it. It is going to be dependent on whether Wales can slow that ball up in the tight. Because All Blacks, they will go for a little forward pod, maybe first 2 hit up phases in terms of setting up a multi-phase. If Wales can stymie it there and then, that's probably their best picture, because what's coming after that is a bit of quick ball, and then they're just going to they're going to use Sonny Bill to sit down the 2 Welsh centres, and if they ease off him, they're going to give it to him. He's going to make shit happen. If they bite in on him, you got the 2 distributors. You got Moong in behind to Barrett, and then it's just
this is why I wouldn't be surprised to see some space for Crotty, to be honest, because he's just Sonny Bill just draws those eyeballs.
He does,
and Crotty's wily, and he's unassuming, but he's wily enough to spot and take a gap when it's there as well. I actually quite like that centre partnership for the All Blacks, to be honest. We haven't seen it that often this tournament, but it's got delicious potential in it. But you're right in saying whether they can slow them up or not is key. Because like England, we laid out a blueprint that I don't think any team's going to follow as well well as they did in terms of shutting them down, but yeah, it involves winning those close collisions
it was
to not allow that quick
It was
ball.
such a different game. If you want to follow the English blueprint, there is a huge amount that does come from the kicking game as well.
Yeah.
From just playing it in the right areas and on the right terms. But their systems are so sophisticated and so much cleverer. They had a play for everything.
Indeed,
they were ready for everything.
A disjointed Welsh team having the same.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is that are they going to have that same wily Tipperick, Alan Wynne-Jones axis that's just everywhere and disruptive? Because that is where Wales are at their best. Are they going to be able to disrupt the All Black ball at the breakdown, at the line out, off the restarts? Certainly, I think taking and just pilfering the English idea of just getting into that passing lane off the restarts, because the All Blacks just did not adjust.
No,
chippy little restarts and trying to flick it back in the prettiest of pictures.
Paid no dividends for them that time, but that's not to say it won't work and yield a try this time around.
That's where you like to think that Wales will be smart enough to make that adjustment and get in those lanes and disrupt them.
Yeah, for sure. But then also, like some classic Welsh kind of stuff, if they do get quick ball and they're bringing those big carriers, it's chop and jackal.
Yeah.
Chop and jackal all day. It's something they pioneered under Warren Gatland. It's something they're still very confident and comfortable doing. They have it in Tipperick and Davis. They do actually have out and out open sides who will go foraging, and Ken Owens as well is not averse to that too. So they know exactly what needs to be done. It's always easier said than done though against this mighty All Black team, especially when they're wounded from the week before and looking to come out and right some wrongs. But yeah, in terms of set piece,
I mean, we've covered it,
but there's some great battles. Retallick and actually not Whitelock this time. They've opted with Scott Barrett. Sam Whitelock has played his last game in an All Black jersey because he's not on the bench either. It does look that way, and it wasn't a great showing from him, but he is an absolute legend of the game and a legend of All Black rugby. But it's Whitelock and Barrett with Tui Pilato to come off the bench versus that axis of basically Tipperick and Alan Wynne-Jones with Beard in there, the non-bearded,
hopefully a good James Davis performance.
Yeah, he's another line-out option too.
Yeah.
We have it's a very wily line-out, and it is the Welsh one. They did, as I predicted, cost the Springboks their first line-out of the tournament. They nicked one.
They did,
and it was like, of course they did. So they'll probably try and get a play or two off against Barrett and Retallick are less in sync maybe as the other two, but they're two bloody good players as well, and they'll also be wounded from last week, so that's going to be interesting. Scrum will probably be parity. I think the All Blacks have an edge, but I don't know if they'll get absolutely on top and go. No, I don't think
it's hard to say because so much of this game is going to depend on who's being on the fever pitch.
Yeah,
and sort of superficially, I would say that looks just even from the chat, it looks a bit more like the All Blacks. I mean, all of the All Black chat virtually since the end of the England game has been like, I'm excited to get one more hit out. Where what you're hearing murmurings from the Welsh camp of like, why is this even a game?
Yeah.
Which
doesn't bode well pre-kickoff.
It definitely doesn't bode well, and certainly just being at the fever pitch is everything.
Yeah.
But you would like to think that come Friday, Wales will
get there.
It's a game against the All Blacks. It's a game for your best ever World Cup finish.
Indeed,
it's like exactly a chance to beat the All Blacks. When was the last time Wales beat the All Blacks? Never, forever ago, 70s.
Yeah.
So I mean, and like absolutely, they're good enough on their day to give them a game.
Yeah.
So yeah, you would like to see Wales getting to that level where they are just intense.
Yeah.
And the intensity is huge, spoiling everything, getting hands and everything.
What'll the response to the Haka be this time? We've had a V, we've had Fields of Athenry. What are the Welsh going to bring?
Bread of
maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
Probably Delilah. I don't know. It could be anything.
That would be fantastic.
That would be. I would love that.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. But I don't think so.
No.
I think they'll just be tit for tat, easy peasy Haka. Yeah, I do worry for Wales in terms of what the All Blacks are going to bring on offense. I worried for England too. I mean, the All Blacks have been a tough enough team to get a read on in terms of signing off on where this All Black team were and are. You know, definitely, I think the cycle matters. I think the fact that they had reverted to type for so long, and then they did seem to find something, but really late in the game. Like again, they went back to playing a more flair-driven, less Crusaders-esque, more old-school All Blacks will throw the ball around, will play to our instincts game in about Bledisloe too.
Bledisloe too was kind of the first little look we had on.
Yeah, so I mean, 2 games out from the World Cup, and then they did look good in the pool stages. They did do for the box with a bit of heads-up footy. They are still a great team, but a team that was so much more intelligent and sophisticated and so much further down the track in terms of coaching, which is a weird one for you because Steve Hansen's been there longer. Yeah, Steve Hansen doesn't come out looking great, to be honest with you.
Maybe not. Yeah, like there's, as we said last week, there will be an inquest, and it's probably post this game that that more of that will happen because they're not delighted. But we've probably been saying over the course of the 4 years in advance of the tournament that it was the most open World Cup has been that we can remember, and a large part of that is due to the rising standards of pretty much all the Tier 1 nations, but also at the expense of probably the drop-off of where the All Blacks were as far as dominance and supremacy and really pioneering and driving the game forward, which is what that 2015 team were doing.
Yeah.
And it still speaks to their credit that even if in those 4 years we felt like we've seen them dwindling, they're still a semi-final team.
I know.
You know?
They're great. They're graded on a different bar to everybody. But I mean, that 2015 team had such memory in the bank of, like, if you think of the Ireland game in 2013, Australia then in 2014,
what do you think of even
South Africa in 2013,
coming from behind, even like their back row combination that was tried and true and going to the World Cup and ready for it. Centres as well. You had Nonu and Conrad Smith, and then Nonu and Sonny Bill.
It's not even just personnel, although that is improved personnel. But it's just that memory in the bank of playing a certain way and finding a way to dig out wins from impossible situations.
Which they did all the time.
Which that team just used to do as a matter of routine.
Yeah.
Almost to the point where you're like, did they just do this for a challenge? They just ship massive leads just to come back and win the game, which they used to just always do. Whereas this team actually, in terms of credit in the bank, they had that drawn Lions series. They were beaten by the Box last year. They have just tightened up. They were beaten by Ireland obviously last year. They just tightened up and played a more fundamentals Crusaders-esque type of game. Yeah. And as impressive as the Crusaders are, there are a lot of big boys in the Test arena messing about. Like that 16-all draw against the Box in the Rugby Championship, and then they found something, but it felt and feels like it's in its infancy in terms of development, which is a weird one to be. Just the throwing the ball aspect of it, it feels very much like.
Even the Barrett Moanga axis is a relatively young one. It could be brilliant in a couple of years' time. I still believe that that's an awesome, and it was their best option, especially with the absence of Damien McKenzie. But you're right. It's in terms of development, it hasn't been a full cycle of it. It's been not far from. And they've been a bit up and down in terms of their own identity as a team, which is
and so it's hard to know. Like, I look at that personnel that's going to play in this game: Scott Barrett and Brodie Retallick and Den Coles and Kieran Reid in his last game, and he's been in great form. I actually can't remember if they're going for Aaron Smith or TJ Perinara. I think it's Aaron, but whoever it is, they're awesome. And then you've got Richie Moanga, Ben Smith. Ben Smith going to be going away.
This is his last All Black outing as well, and what a legend of the game as well for him. I hope he gets a rapturous applause if he gets.
I hope he gets to see a couple of tries to see it all out. He's a great player. But I mean, all of these guys, you think, looking at them, that if they can click, if they can just get outside the Welsh, if they can get runners around the corner, get the blindside winger like Rico Ioane coming off the edge, attacking the shoulder of Jonathan Davis, linking up, that's just a dangerous picture. If they can get quick ball and just play to their strengths, they're just talent-wise on a different level.
For sure.
But I just don't know. It's hard to know what kind of mindset both sides are going to be in, but the superficial instinct that I have is that the All Blacks will edge it.
I think so.
Not even edge it. I think the All Blacks will run away with it. I don't know. But maybe not. Maybe not. Like Wales definitely. If Wales rise to it and spoil, and the All Blacks are a little off it, you never know.
I hope they're passive in defence. I hope for a good game. They're a little disjointed in the backfield, but I don't think they will. I don't think Ben Smith coming in actually weakens that aspect. So those little kicks in behind will be between Bowden and Ben Smith.
There's the kicking game. There's no Gareth Davis. There's no Dan Biggar. There's no Liam Williams. They've picked a team to run the ball.
They have.
They're not going to be kicking
run the ball against the All Blacks.
Yeah,
which is, to be fair, creditable. But
it's exactly what you should do in this third place playoff. But I just don't know how well it bodes for them.
Yeah, I think it could look like a shootout, and I think the All Blacks will win a shootout.
Yeah,
that's my instinct, unless it chucks it down or something, and
unless Alan Wynne-Jones and Tipperick pull off hell of a performance together. The spoiling duo are the only spanner you could throw into those works.
Yeah,
but outside of that, I think All Blacks all day.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning that way as well. Apologies to our Welsh subs who may be thinking, "Hey, I know, don't be."
You're always writing us off.
We were not writing you off. We were giving you the fair shake last week, but I fear I always, whenever the All Blacks lose, I just double down and think they're winning their next game and winning it pretty well. And it doesn't even matter who they're playing against. It just tends to happen that way.
Remember they got beat by the last time they lost a game, they got hammered by Australia. Came back the next week and
absolutely massacred them with viciousness that we hadn't actually seen all year from them. So we may see a bit of that touch of that bite again, perhaps.
I'm just hoping for a fun game, for a good game. It's not obviously that big a deal.
No, but it is a good curtain raiser. It's a Friday game. Yeah. Enjoy it.
I hope that they're not two teams like burst balloons. I hope they go out and have fun
for sure.
And that said, they are both going to be gutted, and it isn't the big game.
No, it isn't. Thank you very much for watching that video. Please like and subscribe for all our new Rugby World Cup content, and please leave a comment down below as well, because we enjoy hearing your thoughts on it. Thanks.